Welcome everyone to today's book reading club, and we're reading the book The Power of Now. Let's get started. I'm going to share my screen so that you can read along. All right. We're going to be reading from the second paragraph of this page. You say that an emotion is the mind's reflection in the body, but sometimes there's a conflict between the two. The mind says no, while the emotion says yes, or the other way around. If you really want to know your mind, the body will always give you a truthful reflection. So look at the emotion, or rather feel it in your body. If there is an apparent conflict between them, the thought will be the lie. The emotion will be the truth. Not the ultimate truth of who you are, but the relative truth of your state of mind at that time. Conflict between surface thoughts and unconscious mental processes is certainly common. You may not yet be able to bring your unconscious mind activity into awareness as thoughts, but it will always be reflected in the body as an emotion. And of this you can become aware. To watch an emotion in this way is basically the same as listening to or watching a thought, which I described earlier. The only difference is that while a thought is in your head, an emotion has a strong physical component and so is primarily felt in the body. You can then allow the emotion to be there without being controlled by it. You no longer are the emotion. You are the watcher, the observing presence. If you practice this, all that is unconscious in you will be brought into the light of consciousness. So observing our emotions is as important as observing our thoughts. Yes. Make it a habit to ask yourself, what's going on inside me at this moment? That question will point you in the right direction. But don't analyze, just watch. Focus your attention within. Feel the energy of the emotion. If there is no emotion present, take your attention more deeply into the inner energy field of your body. That is the doorway into being. An emotion usually represents an amplified and energized thought pattern. And because of its often overpowering energetic charge, it is not easily initially to stay present enough to be able to watch it. It wants to take you over, and it usually succeeds, unless there's enough presence in you. If you are pulled into unconscious identification with the emotion through lack of presence, which is normal, the emotion temporarily becomes you. Often a vicious circle builds up between your thinking and the emotion. They start feeding each other. The thought pattern creates a magnified reflection of itself in the form of an emotion, and the vibrational frequency of the emotion keeps feeding the original thought pattern. By dwelling mentally on the situation, event, or person that is the perceived cause of the emotion, the thought feeds energy to the emotion, which in turn energizes the thought pattern, and so on. Basically, all emotions are modifications of one primordial, undifferentiated emotion that has its origin in the loss of awareness of who you are beyond name and form. Because of its undifferentiated nature, it is hard to find a name that precisely describes this emotion. Fear comes close, but apart from a continuous sense of threat, it also includes a deep sense of abandonment and incompleteness. It may be best to use a term that is as undifferentiated as that basic emotion and simply call it pain. One of the main tasks of the mind is to fight or remove that emotional pain, which is one of the reasons for its incessant activity. But all it can ever achieve is to cover it up temporarily. In fact, the harder the mind struggles to get rid of the pain, the greater the pain. The mind can never find the solution, nor can it afford to allow you to find the solution, because it is itself an intrinsic part of the problem. Imagine a chief of police trying to find an arsonist when the arsonist is the chief of police. You will not be free of that pain until you cease to derive your sense of self from identification with the mind, which is to say, from ego. The mind is then toppled from its place of power, and being reveals itself as your true nature. Yes, I know what you're going to ask. I was going to ask, what about positive emotions such as love and joy? They are inseparable from your natural state of inner connectedness with being. Glimpses of love and joy, or brief moments of deep peace, are possible whenever a gap occurs in the stream of thought. For most people, such gaps happen rarely and only accidentally, in moments when the mind is rendered speechless. Sometimes triggered by great beauty, extreme physical exertion, or even great danger. Suddenly there is inner stillness, and within that stillness there is a subtle but intense joy. There is love, there is peace. Usually such moments are short-lived, as the mind quickly resumes its noise-making activity that we call thinking. Love, joy, and peace cannot flourish until you have freed yourself from mind dominance. But they are not what I call emotions. They lie beyond the emotions on a much deeper level. So you need to become fully conscious of your emotions and be able to feel them before you can feel that which lies beyond them. Emotion literally means disturbance. The word comes from the Latin immovere, meaning to disturb. Love, joy, and peace are deep states of being, or rather three aspects of the state of inner connectedness with being. As such, they have no opposite. This is because they arise from beyond the mind. Emotions, on the other hand, being part of the dualistic mind, are subject to the law of opposites. This simply means that you cannot have good without bad. So, in the unenlightened, mind-identified condition, what is sometimes wrongly called joy is the usually short-lived pleasure side of the continuously alternating pain-pleasure cycle. Pleasure is always derived from something outside you, whereas joy arises from within. The very thing that gives you pleasure today will give you pain tomorrow, or it will leave you. So its absence will give you pain. And what is often referred to as love may be pleasurable and exciting for a while, but it is an addictive clinging, an extremely needy condition that can turn into its opposite at the flick of a switch. Many love relationships, after the initial euphoria has passed, actually oscillate between love and hate, attraction and attack. Real love doesn't make you suffer. How could it? It doesn't suddenly turn into hate, nor does real joy turn into pain. As I said, even before you're enlightened, before you have freed yourself from your mind, you may get glimpses of true joy, true love, or of a deep inner peace, still but vibrantly alive. These are aspects of your true nature, which is usually obscured by the mind. Even within a normal addictive relationship, there can be moments when the presence of something more genuine, something incorruptible, can be felt, but they will only be glimpses, soon to be covered up again through the mind interference. It may then seem that you had something very precious and lost it, or your mind may convince you that it was all an illusion anyway. The truth is that it wasn't an illusion and you cannot lose it. It is part of your natural stage, which can be obscured but can never be destroyed by the mind. Even when the sky is heavily overcast, the sun hasn't disappeared. It's still there, on the other side of the clouds. The Buddha says that pain or suffering arises through desire or craving. The Buddha says that pain or suffering arises through desire or craving, and that to be free of pain, we need to cut the bonds of desire. Eckhart Tolle answers, all cravings are the mind seeking salvation or fulfillment in external things, and in the future as a substitute for the joy of being. As long as I'm my mind, I am those cravings, those needs, wants, attachments, and aversions. And apart from them, there is no I, except as a mere possibility, an unfulfilled potential, a seed that has not yet sprouted. In that state, even my desire to become free or enlightened is just another craving for fulfillment or completion in the future. So don't seek to become free of desire or achieve enlightenment. Become present. Be there as the observer of the mind. Instead of quoting the Buddha, be the Buddha. Be the awakened one, which is what the word Buddha means. Humans have been in the grip of pain for eons, ever since they fell from the state of grace, entered the realm of time and mind, and lost awareness of being. At that point, they started to perceive themselves as meaningless fragments in an alien universe, unconnected to the source and to each other. Pain is inevitable as long as you are identified with your mind, which is to say, as long as you are unconscious. Spiritually speaking, I am talking here primarily of emotional pain, which is also the main cause of physical pain and physical disease. Resentment, hatred, self-pity, guilt, anger, depression, jealousy, and so on. Even the slightest irritation are all forms of pain. And every pleasure or emotional high contains within itself the seed of pain. It is inseparable, its inseparable opposite, which will manifest in time. Anybody who has ever taken drugs to get high will know that the high eventually turns into a low, that the pleasure turns into some form of pain. Many people also know from their own experience how easily and quickly an intimate relationship can turn from a source of pleasure to a source of pain. Seen from a higher perspective, both the negative and the positive polarities are faces of the same coin, are both part of the underlying pain that is inseparable from the mind-identified egoic state of consciousness. There are two levels to your pain: the pain that you create now and the pain from the past that still lives on in your mind and body. Ceasing to create pain in the present and dissolving past pain. This is what I want to talk about now. So let us stop here so that we can discuss about what we have read so far. So, does anyone have any particular lines that they want to discuss more or want more clarity on? That what did it really mean? Or what did they understand from it? So, let's share with each other.
Well, actually, I couldn't read the book past couple of days. I was caught up, and that's why I couldn't even join your sessions. So sorry for that. But one sentence which has just popped up and which I think needs a little bit of deliberation is when Eckhart says that thought cannot exist without consciousness, but consciousness does not need thought.
Yes.
Usually we always consider thinking and consciousness as two sides of the same coin.
Yes.
But as per his, thought process and his,
Teaching.
whatever you can say, his ideas,
Yeah.
they are two different things.
Yes, absolutely.
So, could you elaborate on that?
Okay. So, we have been trained all our lives to, problem thinking, engaging with our intellect, the conscious mind part
Yeah,
of us, we identify ourselves with it, that we are that thought. That's how we've always been trained. That's what we've always been
yeah,
conditioned to think. But what he talks about
yes,
is that you are not the conscious mind. You're not even the unconscious mind. You're actually something beyond that. You are that being which is actually silent. So when there is a thought arising, the thought comes up and, there is a lot of inner dialogue going on. At that time, he says that instead of engaging with it, just sit back as an observer
yeah,
and let that thought pass on itself. Because we try to start engaging with it that, this is the way I can solve it. So the thoughts are actually arising. There are a lot of studies which have actually proven now that before you think you have thought a thought, it has already, your unconscious brain parts have already lit up. So what we think that I am thinking is actually coming from my unconscious mind. It's pre-recorded memories that are replaying actually. So
okay,
when we start engaging with it, we actually get stuck. Like he said,
okay.
that emotion. So you think that the emotion is, the
Hmm.
mind will try to decipher the emotion and it will start feeding it. So the emotion and thought, they actually become a vicious cycle and we get stuck there.
Yeah, yeah,
But the main thing is, he says that emotion is something that you have to very, very importantly start becoming aware of. So, the part that we read today specifically highlights the importance of connecting with your emotion more than your thought,
yeah.
because your emotions are the gateway to that being, that inner stillness, who we really are. If we want to be able to touch that being, or that enlightened state that we call, or the state of who we really are, that gateway only occurs through emotions. And but we are hardly aware of what am I really feeling.
That's
And the
true.
best way to actually connect with our emotions is through our body. So not through our thoughts, that the thought will be, I am very angry at that person, but your body will tell you what is actually going on. There could be vulnerability that is coming up, there could be fear.
Yeah,
So anger is actually a very superficial emotion. Anger always has something beyond it. Anger is
yeah,
never the
that,
true
yes,
emotion.
correct. Yeah, yeah.
So
Its root is different, deep down
exactly.
somewhere.
Anger is
Yeah,
just something on the surface, but where is it
surface.
stemming
Yeah,
from? The real emotion is
yeah.
always something else, which your body will tell you. So,
Yes.
the way he says, just notice your body sensations, what is going
Yeah.
on. So, in our energy field, so we have the physical body, we have the
Yeah.
etheric body, and then we have the emotional body. So, he says, go inside you and then feel that inner emotional body. And once you start becoming aware through your emotions, then you will bypass that also. So we don't even have
Mm.
to get stuck at that level. We will bypass. We just have to observe the emotion. We don't have to start problem solving, do this, do that. Just become an observer. And the moment you become an
Yeah.
observer, the emotion loses its grip on you. But when we engage, we get stuck.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Yeah.
then when you surpass the emotion, so the thought, the emotion, then you start reaching the higher realms which connect you to your being actually, who you are, the consciousness that the consciousness that he talks about, that you are.
Correct, correct. Actually, there's a lot of focus, I would say, on one that, like, let's not live in the mind.
Yes, yes. And
Because if you live too much in the mind, then you experience a lot of suffering and pain.
yes,
And
because all the suffering and
there's a lot
pain,
of conflict. There's a lot
all the
of
suffering
conflict
and pain
within.
is actually just in your mind. And in mind also, I'll say the
Exactly.
conscious mind that we are aware
The
of.
conscious mind. Yes, yes, obviously. The one
That
which
is
we are
where
aware of.
all the suffering
Exactly.
happens. Because, so, like a simple example, that a glass fell down. The glass just fell down. But now my thoughts will start giving meaning to it. Oh, this is a bad omen or it's a good omen. And based on all the stories I'll create, that's how my suffering or my happiness will be created. But if I just let that be,
Yes,
okay, the glass dropped. Okay, let's go and pick it up.
correct. Yeah,
That's when
that's
I
right.
become, present in the moment rather than going into, oh, last time when the glass broke, this happened. Oh, this means this, that person said this. So that's when I've got entangled in that web.
Correct,
I'm no
correct.
more in the
Absolutely.
present moment now.
Yes, that's right. I think actually, frankly, I would say the way to absolute joy and happiness, or rather, not even happiness, joy, comes from, again, this is the my best moment when I'm
Yes.
interacting with you.
Yeah,
There is no
exactly.
past for me, and I'm not going to think of what I have to do 1 hour, even 1 hour later, or even 10 minutes later.
Yeah.
So this is my moment, and I'm enjoying every moment.
Yeah. And all
So
my
I
power is in this moment.
and the yes, you're right.
Because
All the
in the
part.
future, I'm helpless. For the past, I'm helpless. But only in the
Helpless.
present, my power
Absolutely,
lies.
absolutely,
And that's
absolutely.
liberating to
That's
realize that.
liberating. I agree. Absolutely liberating.
Yeah.
Though, of course, I mean, if you talk of in a very practical way, there are things you have to plan. You can't lead life without that too.
Of
But
course.
primarily on a day-to-day basis, the more we stick to the present moment, nothing like it. Nothing
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
And
E-
enjoy whatever you are doing in that moment
yeah. Even the
to the
planning
fullest.
can be done in a very mindful manner without getting sucked into our
Yeah.
thought patterns, beliefs, stories, memories, all of that.
Yes,
So
yes.
we can be planning or we can be reminiscing, but being mindful that I am doing that. Being consciously doing that, not
Consciously.
unconsciously. Most of the times we are doing it unconsciously. Autopilot में हमारा दिमाग आगे चला गया या हमारा दिमाग पीछे चला गया, and it's not in our control. But
Control.
consciously,
Yes.
when I'm doing it with awareness, then it is a
Awareness.
different thing.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. And which is very, I mean, as actually every word of this book is
Oh my
packed,
God, this book is.
packed with some, I mean, every sentence
Yeah,
is
I have
so
this
meaningful.
temptation after every line to stop and discuss.
Stop, discuss. Absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Every sentence is loaded with a lot of meaning,
Yeah.
every sentence, no doubt about that. I agree. I read a couple of pages. I mean, I read till about maybe 50, 60 pages,
Mhm.
and I underlined certain portions which I
Uh-huh.
thought was very, very important. But
Mhm.
the half of the book is underlined now.
Yeah. So even my highlighters, I think everyone can see. So one line in the last page that we read, I had highlighted. I really love this line is that pleasure is always derived from something outside you, whereas
I
joy arises
agree
from within.
from within. This is so true.
Yeah.
And let us face it, we are all seekers of pleasure. We forget how to get the inner joy.
And once you taste that inner
Actually,
joy,
I know.
then there's no going back to pleasure.
Point is that state of inner joy comes with, I don't know when, frankly, or if it'll ever come in our lifetime, even for that matter, I would say. You know, there's just a state of joy which is not linked with who I am, where I am, what do I have, what I don't have, nothing at all.
Yeah.
Just that I'm alive.
Yeah.
I am just
Actually,
alive.
all of
You
us,
know?
even if we think we don't consciously remember having experienced this, but we all have experienced this. We just didn't realize in that moment that this is that moment of, pure bliss, joy.
Maybe.
You
You're
know,
right.
you know,
Agreed.
as the
Yes.
as Eckhart Tolle was describing that it happens many times when you've exerted yourself and you're exhausted. That's also a
Mhm.
time when you suddenly just taste that moment. It happens many times suddenly.
But
Moments of,
we don't realize it. We
yeah,
don't realize
like
it.
seeing your
Mhm.
child born, holding
I
them for the
know
first
that is
time.
true. That I agree. I mean, that was a
Yeah.
time, as you can. I remember when my elder one was born. That was when I cried. So the tears of joy. That was
Yeah.
actually, as you are saying, joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That
you
was
start
pure
crying.
bliss. Yeah.
That is,
Pure
yeah,
joy.
I agree. But such moments are rare. Really rare.
Yeah.
Usually, what we experience most of the time, I would say, is pleasure, which is momentary. I mean, this evening of mine that I spent with my friends,
Hmm.
or this beautiful plant which I bought today gave me a lot of pleasure, and
Hmm.
I'm still deriving a lot of pleasure from it. But
Yeah.
then, maybe after a couple of days, the same thing would become a routine thing for me, and I'll that initial sentiment will be lost.
Yeah. But like you said, the plant, just maybe spending a minute with that plant when there's absolutely no thought.
No thought. Yeah,
That's
that's right.
that's also the conscious, pure, blissful moment that Eckhart Tolle describes. That is also that moment,
Agreed.
where it's
As I mean,
empty.
we always say that spend some time in nature. Just
Yeah.
sit and look at the
Yeah.
beautiful trees or the
Yeah. When the
plants.
nature just
It is
amazes you, that's the time when there's stillness inside.
there
The
is
outer
stillness.
reflects
Yes,
inside.
yes, and you do experience a very a sense of calmness.
Yes.
That maybe for a couple of minutes, or even certain, even momentarily moments, but
Yeah.
it does give
But
you
the best
calmness.
part is the more you practice this, it eventually
Yeah.
becomes your state. It becomes your
Yes.
natural state, and the other thing will be a up and down. But that will
Correct.
be your underlying natural state
Correct.
always if you
Correct.
practice this more and more. And you won't even have to
Absolutely.
make an effort. It will be natural that you are at point zero,
Yeah,
that
that's
space.
right. Like Geet, like when like I'm dancing, I feel
Yeah,
I'm in a state of bliss. Actually,
dancing,
I
absolutely,
love
yes.
it. I love it, and because I love it, because I really
Yeah.
love it. Similarly, some music which I'm listening to
Music
transports me
transports us, yes.
in no state of heightened joy, kelo, yeah, happiness, kelo, whatever you can say, and pleasure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when I watch these dancers in these reality shows, these trained children or even youngsters, uh, there's a sense of amazement at the way they are doing it, and of course, it gives you great joy,
Absolutely.
but not stillness. Stillness.
Yeah.
Doesn't give you peace.
Yeah, that emptiness.
Rather you are a bit excited because you are watching it. You are practically dancing with them.
Yeah,
So you see.
absolutely.
So
Meenakshi,
yes.
Dinesh, would you have anything to share? Anything you like? Do share with us.
Yeah, only one thing to share. Thank you for giving me opportunity. When I read that book, so that was I would say कि total peaceful days. मतलब it was like nasha type. जैसे you said कि after each and every line it is like we should discuss. तो वैसा ही मेरे साथ हो रहा था. तो मैं हर पैराग्राफ को पढ़ के ना, हर लाइन को पढ़ करके और एकदम बिल्कुल पीसफुल स्टेट में जा रहा था, बार बार मेडिटेटिव. तो आई कुड रिकॉल ड्यूरिंग योर कॉन्वर्सेशन that what was my state at that time, and I was in present. So I started practicing this Eckhart Tolle book, and there were long moments for being in the present. तो वो जो अभी आपने बोला ना कि पास्ट और फ्यूचर का अप एंड डाउन हो जाएगा और प्रेजेंट में ज्यादा टाइम रह पाएंगे, तो वो मैं जब उस बुक को पढ़ रहा था तो आई कुड सी कि वो मेरे साथ हो रहा था. बट मैंने अब काफी टाइम बाद उस बुक के बारे में कुछ सुना है अभी आपसे, तो अभी आई विल जस्ट reread it again and experience the same thing again.
Yeah, and just applying those concepts, like even if you don't read it, you can still it's just like a reminder, because since you've read it, it does exist inside you. It's like a reminder to again start coming back to the present moment,
Absolutely.
and enjoy that all the time.
Yes,
and the example you gave, that broken glass example, तो the same thing was happening with me also. पहले जैसे ग्लास टूटता था ना, तो हम सोचते थे यार ये क्या हो गया, वो क्या हो गया. तो अभी हमने ना from last few months, maybe 1 or 2 years, so we have altered the meaning behind it. So now we have created meaning कि ऐसा हुआ है ना, तो कुछ नेगेटिव आना था जो इस ग्लास के वे में खत्म हो गया. So now it has become positive for us.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
So it's all about meaning. So we are
meanings
making
that
machine.
You give us, the belief that we create around it is what's creating a reality anyways.
Yeah, so we can create any meaning out of it.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thanks for sharing that, Dinesh. And this book is to be read so slowly and just enjoy it. So wonderful. So thank you everyone for joining in today. It was lovely reading and discussing this with all of you. And so we'll meet again next Sunday and continue from here. So all right. Have a great night and a great week ahead. Bye.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.